All right, history and economics fans, let's talk about another Victoria 3 game. This time it's Mexican Republic. Why did I choose Mexico? Because I really like Mexico. Some people, when they think about going to Mexico, they think of going on a cruise to Cozumel or Acapulco or Puerto Vallarta or Cabo Wabo, dude. Not me. I don't go to Mexico to get drunk. I go to Mexico to see the museums, the art, the history. I've been to Mexico City. I've been to Veracruz. I've been to Puebla. I've been to Tres Zapotes, the little Olmec ruins there. I've been to the Temple of the Sun in Tenochtitlan. It's just a great place to go to. Loads of history, especially in Mexico City proper. And I've even written a book on Mexican history. I don't think you can find it anywhere right now because the publisher I worked with only did it for the one school year. But it was fun to do, and I learned a lot about it because you got to learn in order to write. And I like to be able to share that expertise. That's another reason why I chose Mexico. I have expertise in its history. Why not Greece or Portugal or some other country? I don't know the history that well there. Mexico, I know. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to be able to look at it as one of the smaller nations. Some of you may be aghast. How can it be a smaller nation? Look at the land area. And the population is over 2 million. All right, look, guys. Compared to the great powers, it's a small nation. Get that in your system. USA, France, Prussia, England, Russia, these are the great powers. Why did I not put the Ottoman Empire on there? Because they're about to not be a great power. They've got their other issues. But these are the big nations that have both population and industrialization sufficient to be in a very commanding position as far as this game goes. Mexican Republic is not in that area. I know that in the vanilla game it's possible to game the heck out of certain mechanisms. I'm not going to do that. I want to play this with plausible historical limitations and guidelines. So, with that in mind, I've begun enacting per capita taxation because there was some popularity for it, and that'll help me increase my weekly take. I want to work in this game at making a change from the current form of government, which is an oligarchical one, to a more democratic one, and to change from a power structure with heavy emphasis on the armed forces and landowners and church, the three most powerful groups right now. I want to see it emerge instead to where the three most numerous groups are the ones that are actually in control of the government. That kind of democratic transition, that kind of populist transition is going to be difficult. In the Latin American nations, it was fraught with revolution. And why? When we look at these nations, they are small. They don't have a lot of economic power, and they're trying to grow in ways that, well, it just takes a lot better financing in order to make that happen. So many of them borrow money from European nations. This gets them into trouble when they can't pay those debts. Europeans show up to collect those debts. This happened to Mexico in the Pastry War in the 1840s, and again in 1861 when Benito Juarez defaulted on his debt payment to France, Spain, and England. They showed up to collect. The English and Spanish got their money and left. The French stayed and set up the Second Empire in Mexico. And so we have this history. And it's not just Mexico. Other Latin American nations went through similar turmoil of either the conservatives and liberals constantly fighting each other, and then you have caudillos as well. Let's talk about caudillismo. Okay. Caudillismo is the Spanish word, means caudillos and their power, and it's like machismo, but caudillismo. The idea of a military leader as having a special capability to run the nation. This is a common thread in many human societies. When the southern states seceded from the United States, they abolished, or didn't abolish, but they refused to start political parties because they thought that party factionism was what split America apart in the first place. But without political parties, there was no real way to differentiate candidates, one from another, in an election. And the ones who stood up, who said, well, I was in the army and you were not, had more power and more authority and more capability of getting elected. And you had caudillismo emerge in the Confederate States of America. It's not just a Latin American thing. But the word caudillismo is a Latin American thing. And definitely when the Latin American governments got their independence from Spain, they had a power vacuum. They had to figure out how to do it. They tried to copy the United States. And Mexico actually didn't try to copy the United States. They started off with an emperor. Yeah, that was kind of like, what? Why we got an emperor here? And for a few years, that's what they had. Iturbide was the first emperor of Mexico. And then in 1824, the people of Mexico toppled him and created the first republic that had universal male suffrage and lots of other cool things that the United States had. But the power struggles within Mexico became such that the government was very unstable. And in 1836, the landowners and military worked to change the Constitution. They overthrew the Constitution of 1824. They set it aside and created a new government that would be oligarchical in nature. Now, the oligarchy was seen as being a split between the landowners and the armed forces in terms of power. Caudillismo would tip the balance in favor of the armed forces. Without caudillismo, we're able to see the two powers play it out with each other and maybe give a better chance of having some other power group arise, such as labor unions, intelligentsia, rural folk, somebody other than the landowners and the military. So we're in the age of caudillismo, and I am not going to take the action to rule by decree. That will advance this by 100. Yes, it cuts the costs of my decrees. I already have a mod that cuts the cost of decrees. This would cut their cost even more. And I could do a lot. If I spammed out greener pastures and encouraged immigration from other countries, I could really build up my population and get on parity with the United States. But again, I'm not doing that. I want to avoid ruling by decree. I want to see this number go down to 0. I want to end the age of caudillos and usher in an age of better democracy. To be completely open with you, my favorite figures in Mexican history are the ones who tried to provide that voice to the voiceless, to get them where they were engaged and able to speak for themselves and make decisions for themselves democratically. Benito Juarez, Emiliano Zapata, Lázaro Cárdenas. These are 3 names that if you are familiar with Mexican history, you will know they really spoke for the commoner. And maybe not completely all the time, every time, and they had their faults. Mexican history is very clear about how it has good features in its characters and bad features in its characters. And in some, the bad outweigh the good, and some the good outweigh the bad, and others it's a kind of an even balance. Take General Santa Anna right now. He's commanding the army against Texas. He's the one who subverted the Constitution of 1824, but he's also someone who helped defend against the French in the Pastry War. But he subverted he swings back and forth, being a hero and a villain. Let it go. Accept that. People make choices, and sometimes the choices are ones you like, and sometimes they're not ones you like. And that's how I can say I really enjoy these characters from history, even though I'm aware that we can find things about them that are like, wow, that's rather unsavory. Well, but overall, I see other things in them that I like. Politics is about finding those kinds of compromises if you wish to succeed. You can't sit there and wait for the absolute perfect ally to show up. You have to find allies of convenience. Well, speaking of allies of convenience, I'm starting a diplomatic engagement with the British, because if I can get a treaty with them, I don't want to be in their trade union. I don't want to slide into the Commonwealth. I like to stay independent. but I would like a defensive treaty with them, so if the United States decides it wants to grab a California, I might have a chance with the British getting involved and keeping the U.S. from doing that. I don't mind if the U.S. protects the rest of Latin America. That's fine with me. They just should not take from me. I'd like them to protect me, not mug me and take half my country, which is what happened in the United States calls it the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. The Mexicans call it the invasion from the United States. La invasión estadounidense, if my Spanish is correct on that. But it means the invasion of the USA. They don't say, oh, it's just a little war. No, they punched us. They rammed in and took half our country from us like pirates or worse. And I want to try to avoid that. So I've got the relationship with England built up, and I'm building up a relationship with France. They're Orleanist right now. I don't see Bonaparte. He's not trying to build an empire in Mexico. I think it's a safe thing to do. And it seems, again, having an ally in France might help me protect against the encroachments from the USA. I'm not going to join any trade groups. That would be a very easy thing to do. Get into a market and then soak up all their goods and produce what they need to have and just grow. No. Mexico is going to be independent. It's going to stand on its own feet as long as I can have that do it. I've got pride in this. So I hope I can. I've set it up to where I'm building lots of construction capacity in the state of Mexico. Why would I do that? Well, they've got the largest population of all my states. Mexico City is a true central city in Mexico. So much of Mexico's population lives in that city and in that immediate area. To say that it is, you could have a centralized state based on that would not be too far off. And the government is unitary. We are not a federal group of states. We are ruled from the center. That's something I do like, something I want to perhaps keep going, that we don't have a federalist or confederate structure, but maintain a unitary structure if I could, as we make these other political changes. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, I'm encouraging construction here. You won't see this, but of all the, if I go to my decrees, let's go there. Yes. I'm encouraging the efficient administration, learning, immigration, construction. I want everything there. So I'm going to build out the construction and then build out some more universities. And then after that, we'll see about building other things. What I don't want to have happen, as I said, is a revolution. And I've got the series More Money, Less Revolution. That's exactly what I intend to have here. If I can grow the economy and maintain that growth and not have to go into debt or worse, I should be able to avoid that revolution. Well, we'll see what's happening. And by the way, the Republic of Texas is not going to last long here. I pulled out the mod that makes Texas stronger. They don't have it here. I'm going to bring them in. The other thing that's going to happen is we don't have revolutions in Yucatan or Rio Grande or Zacatecas. Those are gone at the start of this game. But in reality, they had just happened, and Santa Anna had to move north through those areas on his way to Texas to first quell those rebellions, and then he was going to quell the Texas rebellion. I do like how the leaders of my country right now, though, if we look at the leaders of the groups, I've got Anastasio Bustamante at the head of the landowners, and General Santa Anna as the head of the military. And then we've got Alaman here for the clerical group, and Barragan here for the overall presidency. But the two characters, Bustamante and Santa Anna, were the dominant political forces during this oligarchical period. I don't know, it's not the first oligarchy. It's just the oligarchical period here in Mexican history. And what I'd like to see is them eventually losing power, but eventually and gradually, not revolutionarily, if I can avoid it, if I can help that. And hopefully they don't go at each other's throats. I don't want to see them try to launch a coup on each other. All right, so we're going to crush the Texas Rebellion. I'll do some growth, and I will come back to this when we've got something significant to talk about. So I will see you once we've taken care of a bunch of things. Probably a few years will go by. I didn't expect to be making a recording so soon, but this changes everything. I was already thinking I'd like to have something more gradual. This could make that thing happen. Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna suddenly died. Let us mourn the loss of a great leader obviously is going to happen because the thing has got 0.3% chance of passing. But beyond this, without Santa Anna, who was a huge opportunist, I don't want to compare him to certain current historical figures, but in my mind I'm doing it right now. Massive opportunist. Not just somebody who was part of a political machine, but somebody who was outside it, stepped in, said, I'm going to save the nation. And everyone, yeah, you're going to save the nation. How are you going to do it? Trust me, I got a plan. And he would be president, and he'd be really popular and wave at everyone. They think he's awesome. And he'd bankrupt the treasury and say, I will now retire to my country estate. Everything is in good hands with my vice president, who will now be president. I resign. See ya. He'd leave. The vice president would show up and go, oh, we have no money. What the heck? Santa Anna wasn't an idiot. And he'd say things like, Santa Anna, he bankrupted us. And people go, that's not true. Santa Anna told us he didn't bankrupt us. And the guy who's now the president, no, he really did. He done you dirty. And they, no, you can't say that. And Santa Anna would say, what's this? The nation's bankrupt. It was fine when I left it. I will lead a revolt. And the people get behind Santa Anna. He'd take over, overthrow the guy that he put in charge after him, and then say, everything is good again. Don't you worry. Take some more money out of the treasury, and now I'm leaving in the capable hands of this other guy. Yay! And he'd just rinse and repeat until somebody totally wiped him out, and then he would lie in wait until he could attack him again. He is the single greatest cause of instability in the Mexican state between 1824 and his death in the 1850s. Single greatest cause of instability. And now he's gone. In 1836, without that kind of machination, without that kind of manipulation, we now have, blander politics. Politics is more boring, and that's good. You want boring politics. Boring politics means everything should be fine, or relatively so. At least it's not violently gyrating the way Santa Anna was constantly churning the system. Any political leader that is like lobbing verbal hand grenades and political bombs at other people and trying to blow things up and just insult everybody and act like the world is revolving around them and that I have millions of loyal followers who will back me up as I wipe you out, you threat to the nation. Anyone who's doing that is a demagogue. Santa Anna was a demagogue. And the demagogues thrive on chaos and convincing people that they're right and that the chaos is the right thing to do, when actually it's not. The right thing to do is to find a way to compromise with other people, that if your political faction is slipping in power, find a bridge you can build or find some other issue you can take on, and not stand firmly and never give ground, but find a way to shake hands and move forward. That's the way you make progress. But anyway, he's gone. He's out of it. This changes everything. No Santa Anna. That really undercuts caudillismo. So my entire plan here is now justified by this guy being gone. And yeah, let us mourn the loss of a great leader. He's not going to trouble us at all. Oh my gosh, that's significant. All right, I'll come back when we have some more significant stuff. Well, we just passed the law for per capita taxation. Good deal there. And we can now pass another law. I want to be able to pass laws for schools or police or things that help improve the nation overall. But you can see I've got this big red negative number for my administration right now. I just can't. So until we have more administration, we can't really expand those kind of administrative services that go with institutions. We need to look at non-institutional laws that we can work with, and one of those is landed voting. Now, the industrialists will oppose it somewhat, but it'll take them from 12 to 7. And this gets us away from the oligarchy. In 1838, if we can get away from the oligarchy and get to where, true, it's not universal male suffrage, but it is a weighted voting sort of system that allows us to make that gradual progress. I'm a gradualista as I do this, not a revolutionista. But here we go. We're going to go with landed voting and promote that. It should have a pretty good chance of passage. There's 20% of the people like it. We'll see how we go there. In the meantime, I have been managing my economy. We had a big shortage of wood. So after I built about 5 construction centers in Mexico, I shifted over. I'm building up some logging just so we have a better domestic supply of wood. We're going to need more of it as we expand the construction sector. I don't want to be caught off guard with that. And I'm only building wooden buildings right now. When we switch over to iron buildings, I need to have iron mining done prior to that. I've got each thing in order. We've got to take it slow at the start. Keep in mind also that industrialization in this time period in these places did not mean building factories. It meant getting people to switch from farming and doing a craft to doing that craft 100% of the time. Getting somebody to go from being a part-time blacksmith to a full-time blacksmith. Every day, all the day. Or the same with making pottery or other artisan work or craftsmanship. That's the very first stage of industrialization. Getting it to where you have specialized professionals that don't do any farming at all. That's the real first phase of industrialization. You think about all the stuff going on in England and everything. That's later on. That's mid phase industrialization. This is the industrialization of the 18th century that happened in England is starting to happen in Mexico. It's happening on the U.S. frontier. Remember also that all through the United States, on that eastern coast there, that's going to be their most industrial, well, the northeastern coast is going to be the most industrialized part. And the further you get away from Boston and New York City, the more rugged the situation is, to where you're out on the, like in places like Illinois and Missouri, they are not industrialized at all there. Subsistence farming with a mix of craftsmanship. We did, for example, my wife does pottery, and I was reading about pottery on the frontier, and there are places where they didn't actually have full-time potters or even full-time blacksmiths until the 1840s in the USA on the frontier. We're all going through this process here in the North America. Canada's probably got the same situation. But in Mexico, I want to mind it, and I want to be very carefully and slow and deliberate so I don't have to suddenly go into massive debt. I want to keep that gold bar I have. I want to keep that gold as long as I can. And it's not that large. If I hover over it, it says I got gold reserve limit of 738K and gold reserves now of 536K. That is not much at all. Other nations in the late game, it's in the millions. This is in the Ks. And that when I go into debt, it can be similarly shallow. I have to be very careful about my finances. As soon as I start going into debt, I must be very, very careful to not let that spiral out, because it can quickly hit the limit and I'm paying way more than on interest than I can afford, and I will have a looming bankruptcy. I don't want that. All right, well, we're going to enact landed voting. We'll see how that goes. Let's see if we can keep making that transition towards a more democratic and beneficial nation peacefully. Welcome to 1839. We now have landed voting. This is a good development. We no longer have the whole oligarchy here. We've weakened that part of the power structure. Yes, it's not that much weakened, but it's getting there. This gives us less authority, but I was actually getting to the point where we have so much money coming in from tariffs that I was cleaning those out and just putting in decrees left and right for my like just doing greener grass campaigns all over Mexico. Just bring everybody in. Let's increase our population. So now we have that. I could reform the government right now. It looks like I need to, but I'll wait and see what political parties form and then build off of that. Because if I build now and send one group out and bring another group in and then think I have a good stable government and then suddenly things shift because the political parties form, I could wind up with something else. So let's endure this a little bit a while here and let's see what kind of political parties we get. So I'll just go ahead and click on that. We'll get rid of one of these taxes here. Opium. We don't need an opium tax. There we go. We're back up there. We're still, we're very close to our limit here to start minting. But we'll be okay. Let's go ahead and unpause and see what parties form. Lucas Alaman is now the leader. He was the head of the religious party. Barragan was from the armed forces. Let's go ahead and we now have conservative and liberal party. Standard Latin American political parties. Let's see who they may. Oh, wow. I didn't have to do any clicking. We got straight over here. It looks like the conservatives are in charge. And the petite bourgeoisie will join them on the next up. Well, let's see what happens if we reform. If I throw them in, we'll go from 69 to 48. No. We'll maintain this government as it is here. We'll be fine. And even though the armed forces being in the government increase caudillismo, I'm hoping we get an event that'll drop it. Anyway, I like appointed bureaucrats. If I go with National Guard or Secret Police, I'm going to have to deal with bureaucracy, and that's going to diminish my negative total. I still haven't built new bureaucracy there. I want to keep unitarism. I like the professional army that I have. We're good with the taxation that we have. I don't want to go to serfdom. I like frontier colonization. I would like to have a dedicated police force, but as it is, that's an institution. I can't go with that. I don't want monarchy or theocracy or an ethno-state. Oh my gosh. I would like religious schools very much. But I don't yet have enough bureaucracy to handle it. I have to hold off on that. And charity hospitals would be great as well. Yes, both of these, if I enact them, this one will increase the Catholic Church power by 10%, and the charity hospitals will also increase by 10%. I would have to break that power eventually, but I need that. And I don't want to go from free banking to merchant banks, which is the bottom one here underneath my head. So I'm not going to pass any more laws. We just need to keep building the economy. We'll just let it ride here, and we'll see what happens with that election in 182 days. See what happens with that. But with no Santa Anna, we have got some excellent peace and calm in Mexico, an island in the storm, because, if I look to the south, you see that south there. The federal states of Central America they're gone. They're Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and all that. They're no longer there. It bees that way. So we are going to see what happens with that election, and if we can have peaceful transfers of power, wouldn't that be something? Let's find out. Well, again, one of these little events pops up that I didn't expect. Do we go with a proportional representation system or a first-past-the-post system? First-past-the-post system is what they have in the USA and England. It means you have a constituency and you have voters within that constituency. Let's say we have a place where you have 10 voters, obviously a small constituency. In first-past-the-post, if 6 of the voters go for one party and 4 of the voters go for another party, well, that 6th voter one wins, and the other 4 don't have a say in the government. First past the post. It could also mean if we have a split vote with, say, 3 parties, and Party A gets 3 votes, and Party B gets 3 votes, and Party C gets 4 votes, Party C is first past the post. They don't even have a majority. Now, there are other videos that talk about Australian systems and second choice systems, all this other stuff. I like them, but I'm not going to get into that because they don't exist. We have first past the post, or we have proportional representation. So here we have the total votes cast, and the one that wins 6 votes goes on to represent that district. But those 4 votes go towards, 4 votes goes toward a national total, and there's a certain pool of seats in the parliament or Congress or whatever that are dedicated for proportional representation. Or it could be that the entire thing is proportional representation. There are no districts. We simply turn in the vote, and that determines how many people, each party will send a certain number of their people in to represent. We don't have direct democracy because the technology doesn't allow for it right now. If we want to have a state that's organized enough to repel invaders and keep things going, you can't be running things on a village level. Realistically, you have to have representative democracy, even though it's not truly democracy, because you elected somebody to speak for you, and that person may himself be from a more elite group than you are. And anyway, but I get to choose between representation that's proportional or first past the post. And proportional makes it easier for the people at the bottom to have their voices heard. My heart goes with proportional representation. It will mean we take a hit on legitimacy from including the head of state in the government, but it also means we get more legitimacy based on votes. I'm going to go with that. The first past the post means we have a two-party system, a constant two-party system. You can never get a viable third party unless one of these parties just completely collapses and then another one shows up. But with a pluralistic system, with proportional representation, you can have multiple parties and they work with each other. And yes, there's problems with that, but they're the problems of being able to have people form coalitions and work with each other. I like that. I prefer that to the first past the post system. So we're going to go with that. Click. And we'll continue having stuff run until we have the election. So we'll see you after that. So we've been maintaining and minding our own business. It's 1842. I've got a trade deal with France, but because I'm a minor power, they don't want to make a defensive alliance with me. And what's really concerning is the United States just put a claim on everything from Louisiana west. Well, not Baja California, but yeah, everything out to California. I need to do something to get that some kind of deal with the French. Will the British go to me? Form defensive pact, they say no. Their reluctance is by what? How much? Come on, how much is it? Tell me. 145. And trade agreement minus 84. Go over back to the French. Yeah, we've got that. Oh, great. They'll let us join their customs union. Didn't really want that. On the other hand, if we're in their customs union, it's not yet 1.7. They can't make a protectorate out of me. But if I have just a little bit more army, it's still not going to help there. I gotta build my own army here. And maybe if the USA looks like it's coming for me, jump in with the French and see if they'll come by to protect me. I don't like that idea, though. I've got a surplus here. I could raise some more taxes and get an army. The United States has got, 39 plus 185. I can't raise that many conscripts. They've got the population of 18.7. I have the population of 8.12. I'm less than half of what they have. I've only got 12. If I want to raise all of my units, let's look at the infantry here. I could get one from Mexico, one from Zacatecas, two from Yucatan. I've got like 20, maybe. Let's just put them all in. Yeah, I got 20. They've got 185. I got 20. We can't do this without help. I hate to have to ask the French for this, but we're going to join their customs union. I don't have to owe them an obligation. I already owe an obligation from getting in their trade deal, but they've accepted us in the customs union. This might keep the USA away from our door. We're in the French market, and now everything's changed as well. Golly, if I look at my situation, all my trade routes are now totally woo because I'm in the French market. I'm not trading outside of that market right now. I'm just keeping it all within. Now, if the French have a shortage of something, I got to face that. But right now, I'm in their market. And for better or for worse, that's where I'm going to need to be. I am trying to build relations with the USA. Well, we're at a point here where Mexico is independent, but closely tied to France economically. And maybe if we can grow our economy within them, we could break out and become independent. But we're working on building our universities right now. And then after that, we can actually, 164 guys, we could get education here. And we just unlocked intensive agriculture. That means with better agricultural methods, we won't need as many farmers. We can get something better. Let's get those religious schools. Let's start educating the people. I know it gives more power to the Catholic Church, but we've got a surplus of bureaucracy. In fact, since we're in the French market, let's gamble and go to filing cabinets. Let's go to filing cabinets. Yes, there's probably some other things we can do. This might be a thing to try for. We'll need to be under the French wing, but at least they're not going to take us over and stick an Austrian on our throne. Right? Well, until next time, I hope all your diplomatic plays go the way you want them to, and may you never be cut off in the middle